Well, Steve, thank you so much for taking a Friday afternoon to talk to us. We haven't met in person, but I am a founding member of the Irish American Business Chamber way back when Bill McLaughlin first started it, and a co-chair of the Life Sciences Forum. So that's how I have the pleasure of talking to you today. So thank you for the time.
Pleasure, Susan. Nice to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so let's get started. We'll talk a lot about leadership and you, Steve, but it'd be great for our listeners if you could briefly explain the important work that ICON does, and we'll start that way.
Sure, Susan. Yeah, ICON's a 30-year-old contract research organization. That may not be entirely familiar that term may not be familiar to your listeners, to your readers. We're a group who run clinical trials for the pharmaceutical industry. Typically, sometimes we work for government groups and others, but typically we work for pharmaceutical companies, but we run their trials. So we are a contract group. We go out, we work with investigators, we work with sites across the various therapeutic areas, and we arrange and monitor and manage the clinical trials. So a good example would be, I think everyone's heard about the COVID vaccine trials that have been run recently, and we've been very involved in a number of those clinical trials over the last 6 or 7 months, I suppose, and had a big role in bringing those vaccines that are now coming to market. Has been partly, these are always team efforts, of course, but partly due to what ICON's been doing.
Well, thank you for that. And I read a little bit about in early February, you mobilized your vaccine, infectious diseases, government and public health resources to benefit the government and your clients. Can you tell us about that a little bit and the inspiration behind that mobilization?
Yeah, I mean, early February and sort of March, it was very much a time when everyone needed to mobilize. The pandemic was upon us, and we really needed to mobilize resource, mobilize our expertise around the vaccines. We were recently awarded the best vaccine CRO, so we have a fair bit of expertise and experience in this area. And in our case, when our sponsors came to us and asked us to ramp up resource and put these trials in place, it was a matter of identifying, people and resources and expertise around the company to bring that to bear on the particular trials. These trials were large trials. Tens of thousands of patients have been enrolled across the world, a number of different countries, and about 150 different investigator sites. So we've been working hard over the last 6 or 8 months to bring those resources to bear, to gather that data in the most appropriate manner. We have, of course, we're a highly regulated industry, so we need to cover we need to cover all the laws and the ethics guidelines, et cetera, and all that's been done, and we've been able to do it very quickly, thank goodness. And as you've seen just recently, the approvals are starting to come through now.
Yeah, we were, I think, worldwide excited to see the recent news. And again, thank you for ICON's service in terms of all of this that has been going on. Let's get a little bit more about Steve and, ask you during a time like this, how has your leadership and you as a person been tested by all of this? We'd love to hear a little anecdotal, bits about how it's been for you.
It's certainly been an interesting time. I think that's probably the understatement of the decade. We went really from a time when most of our associates were in the office and interacting with each other. We have offices, of course, all around the world, but personal interaction is a very important part of our business. To literally within a couple of weeks, most of, if not 95% of our people working from home and doing calls like this. And so it was a challenging time to keep the company together, to reassure people that they had a future, that they had a job, that the company was moving forward. Of course, it was very uncertain. And so we did a number of things, financially to manage our costs very actively. And we were very open and honest with our employees about what we were doing there. I ended up doing a video conference call or I sent out a video initially every week. And then we moved it to every 2 weeks. So I sort of upped the communication, and employees could log in and see what was happening. I tried to be as open and as honest and as transparent as possible within the constraints of, obviously we're a public company and we have to be cognizant of that as well. But we We shared with our employees the challenges that we saw. We gave some reassurance that what we were doing, we were very open with our whole approach. And so I think that helped. So that was certainly a change. At the end of the day, you run the company as you can, you make decisions. We're a scientific orientated organization, so data is important to us. Looking at information, getting objective information, data on the various situations, and looking at alternatives is an important component of what we do. And I'm a data orientated sort of guy from that point of view. So doing that and then getting the information, making decisions in a timely manner, not waiting too long, making sure that those decisions were implemented effectively was all a part of it. And we've managed to come through it. We're not quite through it yet. There's obviously here in the US, there's still a lot of the virus around, and we're conscious of that. Our offices certainly aren't all open, and we're still in a situation where most people are working from home, but we can see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we've adapted very well, I think, to the situation. And I think that's been an important part. The resilience, I've been most impressed by the resilience of our organization overall, the way people have just knuckled down and understood the challenges and got on with their work, found new ways to get their work done. It's been quite awe-inspiring, really, the way our people have responded.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think I've ever felt so lucky to be in this industry, to see what this industry has been able to do is, as you said, nothing short of awe-inspiring. I guess I'm a little curious to see what of these changes do you think will carry on? In other words, how will this change ICON going forward into the future, do you think?
I think the pandemic has really got us to see things in a different way, and I do think we've kind of jumped ahead. We had a number of the things that we do in terms of running clinical trials, whether it be the technology, the remote monitoring, and more our decentralized approaches. We're in various stages of moving forward, but we work in a very conservative industry, as you know, and so the pandemic, I think, has really been a catalyst, or will be a catalyst to a lot of the things that we literally had to put in place within a few weeks. So we had a cohort of about 500 clinical trials running. We had to pivot very quickly to move to monitoring and managing them in a very much off-site, remote sort of manner. We really couldn't get to the sites, through April and May, but we needed to keep those trials moving along. And so that has allowed us to see that we can do that. And we've been able to effectively put that in place really over the last few months now, to the point where going forward, it should be a normal way of doing things. So we've accelerated, I think, a lot of this technology, the way we've approached trials. We've accelerated our ability to work from home and work in a more decentralized manner. I think we look at how our whole office footprint and how we interact with our workforce, how we communicate with our workforce. I think that's going to change going forward. So there's a whole lot of different things that'll I think be accelerated significantly, Susan, over the next year or two as we come back to whatever normal is going to be. I think in the future.
Yeah, it's been astounding. If we take a couple of steps back and look to the reason that we're here today, 11 years ago in 2017, you were named CEO of ICON, and at the same time, the company was honored with the Ambassador's Award by the Irish American Business Chamber. And our then Irish ambassador to the US, Michael Collins, made that presentation. So, you've been named one of the best, if not the best, vaccine CRO. But what did that recognition mean to your company?
Oh, it meant a lot, to be recognized by your peers, and as an Irish company, and a very proud Irish company formed in Dublin, with 5 people in 1990, to come as far as we've come and to be recognized by the ambassador and in that way was a huge thrill for us. And we've continued that development. I think our culture is uniquely Irish. We compete, of course, against a number of US-based companies and US headquartered companies who, in my mind, are very good competitors and very strong companies, but they have a different culture. And the Irish culture really shines through at ICON. And I'm very keen to, I'm Australian by birth, but I've always felt that Australians and Irishmen, Irish women have a strong and a close sort of sense of community, sense of collaboration, and a very like sort of culture. And I've certainly found that as I've led this organization, and it's been a great thrill. It's been a great experience over the last 3 years as CEO, but I'm almost at the 9-year level. I'm coming up to 9.5 years now in terms of my time at Icon. And it's, as I say, it's been a great experience. It's been a wonderful experience. I love Dublin, I love Ireland, and I love what that brings to us as a global organisation. That Irish can-do attitude, that collaborative approach, that partnership, the ownership is really, I think, unique, or I like to think it's unique amongst our competitor organisations, and it gives us, I think, some competitive advantage in the clinical development landscape.
Yeah, no question. I obviously agree with you. You can see by the red hair.
Yes.
So you yourself, you have an amazing CV, rich in a long career in life sciences. Your experience, your leadership style. I always like to ask this question: do you feel like the experience kind of grows along with the leadership, or is it more natural affinity to build teams and lead the way that you have? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on leadership, really, and your own journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think experience plays a lot into how you lead teams. Although you grow and your own genes, your own outlook, your own upbringing, I suppose, has a role to play. I grew up in Australia initially, but I spent time in Europe. So I've spent the last 20 or so years here in the United States. So I'm lucky in that I've seen a number of different national perspectives. I've seen the way things are done politically, socially, operationally, from very different points of view. I spent time in South Africa just after Nelson Mandela was released. So, your experiences, I think, shape you as an organisation. I played rugby for a number of years early in my career, and I often like to say that CRO is a little bit of a contact sport as well. Rugby is a contact sport, so is CRO a little bit, and it kind of shapes you a little bit and helps you, I think, in terms of the way you approach situations and you approach people. And our business tends to attract people who can take a little rough and tumble. We don't win all the time. You got to learn how to lose. You got to learn that experience. You got to learn how to communicate. You got to learn how to motivate people and to have them feel that they want to work with you and for you, and for a greater goal as well in terms of how we're bringing drugs and devices to market. So I think as you grow up, you probably learn a lot. You have successes, you have failures. I always think, as my old rugby coach used to say, you learn much more from your failures than you do from your successes. And I've taken that lessons to heart. I've had plenty of failures along the way, and I'd like to think I've learned from them along the way, and I've been a better leader and a better manager for having gone through some of those failures.
Oh, what a great answer. I couldn't have asked for more. Thank you. And it kind of leads into talking about the younger people in our industry. I'm an engineer by background. You're a doctor, medical background. What advice or suggestions would you have for those young scientists, those young engineers, those young doctors, considering staying on the path of R&D and science, or as you have kind of moved into these more commercial roles? How do you kind of navigate those decisions that come about, and most of us in our early 30s and onward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always think, do something that you really love to do, and because you'll tend to be good at it if you love doing it. You'll tend to read around it. You'll tend to want to get more experience in doing it. So that's the first thing I'd say. Do something that you enjoy. Be flexible. I mean, I was lucky in that I have a very supportive wife and a very supportive family who've been happy to move around the world with me. I've lived and worked in 4 different continents over the last 30 years. I've lived in Britain, and so I mentioned South Africa. Obviously, Australia is where I started, and here in the US. So I was lucky in that I was able to get those different experiences. I think that's been an important part of that. So be flexible, be adaptable. And I think the other thing I'd say is say yes. When you get an opportunity, even when it's a little bit outside your comfort zone or something that you haven't been, totally familiar with, it's going to stretch you a little bit. Embrace it. Say yes and get that experience. Don't stay within a narrow sort of area. Try to broaden as much as possible, because if you can apply the skills that you have more broadly, you'll be a very helpful, a very useful leader to any sort of organization. And I think as you do that, you really make yourself a very valuable player in a corporation.
More great advice. Thank you, Steve. I just kind of have one other question more around another award. In 2020, which we are living in now, Forbes magazine named Icon as one of the best employers in America and also as one of the best employers for women. In our closing minutes, I'd love to hear more about the driving forces behind those accolades.
Yeah, we were very proud of that. That's something I feel very strongly about and something I'm very proud of, the employer and particularly our employment of women. It's something that we feel strongly about in terms of our diversity and inclusion, not just on a gender basis, but on a disability basis, on a racial basis. It's something that we feel strongly about because I fundamentally believe that diverse teams that come from different backgrounds, as I said, I've been in different parts of the world, and it kind of perhaps helps me to feel that way or to believe that you get a better answer when you have teams that come with different perspectives. And I'm not one that needs everyone to agree with me as the leader. I certainly have a perspective and I'm always happy to put it forward. But I'd like to think I listen, and I'd like to think that I encourage people on the team to bring a different perspective forward. And so having different people on the team, whether they be women, whether they be people with disabilities, whether they be racially diverse people, is really important because they see things in a different way. And I think as you do that, you get to the right answer as an organization. And I think that's the important thing. We don't always want to be all thinking the same thing. As I say, if we're all doing the same thing or thinking the same thing and saying the same thing, then most of us are redundant. You really need to have some diversity of opinion, diversity of thought. And while that can sometimes engender a little conflict, I don't think that's a bad thing. I never think conflict is a personal thing. I think it's good to have a little bit of disagreement, a little bit of conflict, and a little bit of challenge there, because I think ultimately you get to the right answer. And I think as an organisation, as an Irish organisation, we're good at that. We're good at not taking things personally, at expressing our opinion, at being non-hierarchical and relative and transparent, being non-political. I would say that's one of the things I'm most proud of at Icon, that we're a relatively non-political organisation. I'm happy to be in the canteen interacting with everyone. I expect my leadership team to do the same thing. I think that gets us to, as I say, the best answer, and it gives us a culture that is warm, that is collaborative, that is supportive, but it is also challenging. It challenges the status quo, challenges the way we do things, and we're always asking our teams and our people to keep moving, to keep improving. Great that you do something well, great that we have a success. What's the next step? We're only as good as our next project, and that's the way we like to look at things around Icon.
Well, you certainly experienced that this year, and we really appreciate you sharing some of those moments and your own experience. Couldn't have asked for a more enjoyable half hour, so thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Susan. I've enjoyed it very much.
All right, enjoy the rest of your day and have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye, Steve.
Cheers.